Well, for more on this, I'm joined from Hong Kong by Dr. Trey Menefee, who's founder of Open Source Intelligence Hong Kong, an online project monitoring the protests in the territory. Thanks for joining us. First of all, why do you think that Mr. Zhu Min was fired?
I think Wang was fired for bad information and bad performance. I think he was not relaying correct information back since the beginning of this movement, which goes back to June. But I think the catastrophic thing was the recent district council elections, where the opposition parties won upwards of 90% of the seats.
What do you think we know now about the successor, Luo Huining? What do we know about him?
Not a lot, except that he seemed to be on the verge of retirement. He came out of Qinghai, which has a fairly large Tibetan population. From there, he went to Shanxi, where he was part of the anti-corruption purges. But we also know he has very little connection to Hong Kong, doesn't speak Cantonese. So we don't really know what to expect of him yet.
Do you think this is going to mean a change in policy or a tougher implementation of the old policy?
I think it's mostly just a rolling of heads. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more. I don't think Carrie Lam's position as chief executive is very tenable. I actually predicted about a month ago that this would be about the time that they would start rolling heads for just terrible performance here.
Do you think that Beijing's leadership has a good sense of what's happening in Hong Kong? Or do you think that there is an argument to say that the leadership in Beijing has been misled, if you like, by misinformation or not the right information?
I think they have a very bad sense of what's happening here. And they have always been reacting to things and I'd say sometimes up to a month late. I think this entire thing would not have happened, honestly, had they been just a few days earlier with different things at different points in time. But they always got the timing wrong. And it's also very unclear who's even calling the shots here, whether it's Carrie Lam or the liaison officer, or whether it goes all the way up to Beijing. But just if you look at the overall performance, it's been very bad. I don't think a provincial leader, like a mayor in mainland China, would have lasted as long as Carrie Lam.
So what do you think needs to happen next? What do you think is going to happen next in terms of the protests and in terms of how the Beijing government reacts?
Well, prediction is always very hard, of course, especially in this environment. In some sense, I think it's going to be more of the same. We have seen something of a de-escalation order with the Hong Kong police force, wherein they're now allowing larger marches. They're not tear gassing and firing rubber bullets quite as quickly as they used to, although arrests are still going way up. So I would expect maybe more of that, permitting more marches, trying to make them less violent and I think they're fiery as they've been with lots of Molotov cocktails, but again, increasing arrest and things like that.
Okay, Dr. Trey Menefee, thank you so much for talking to us.
All right, thanks for having me.